Hello, real estate agents. Do you ever feel like we have that negative connotation on us that we are pushy salespeople, almost as bad as a used car salesman? No offense to used car salesmen, I only buy my cars used, and I've worked with some wonderful people. But we have that negative connotation that we're just salespeople. And I want to tell you that the day that I transitioned my mindset from I'm a salesperson to I'm an expert, my entire world changed. I wasn't holding myself back anymore, thinking that people are only going to look at me a certain way because I didn't like the idea of being a salesperson. That's not who I am. I always come from a perspective of education. I want to educate people. I want to be knowledgeable on the subject matter that I'm talking about, and I want to get somebody from point A to point B. I want to facilitate a wonderful experience for somebody else. And so it actually wasn't until I was in my broker class doing my pre-broker coursework, and the instructor there, who's an incredibly wonderful, patient, kind, and calming man, said to the class, you know, you are not salespeople, you are experts in real estate transactions, whether that's residential real estate or commercial real estate, in my case, residential real estate. And it was life-changing. And he went on to say, you have three responsibilities. Your three primary responsibilities is to know the market, be able to complete a very competent market analysis, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, be able to explain that to them, and be able to develop either a solid list price or offer price on a property. That is your number one, the first thing. Okay, and I thought, well, wow, that's a very different approach from you are a salesperson to I better be really confident in completing a comparative market analysis. And number two, he said you have to be an expert in marketing. And I thought, okay, I hear a lot about marketing, and it's kind of the fallacy of real estate that marketing sells, right? And I thought about it, and I thought about it a lot. And I thought, okay, you know what? When we think about marketing, we think about flyers and brochures and pictures and Matterport photos and drones and all of these things. And I thought, you know what? I don't think that's where it stops. Like, I don't think that's all what it is. So when I'm listing a house, I always tell my sellers, you know, to make your home as marketable as possible, to make your home as easy to buy as possible, we're going to add to this listing on the MLS the seller's property disclosure, a frequently asked questions form. If it has an HOA or something, we're going to attach all of those documents. We're going to have the addendums attached. We're going to have the writers attached. We are going to have everything there so that the buyer has no question whatsoever about this home. We are providing everything to them. Because I always say to them, you know, if a buyer is between two homes and this home has all of the information and this home has no information, and you can't get the agent on the phone, the list agent on the phone, and we can't get our questions to our answers to our questions, which home are they likely to buy? Because I'll tell you, I've worked with buyers, and a lot of times they get this little bit of a panic. Don't want to encourage the panic, but sometimes they get this little bit of a panic of, what if someone else is going to put an offer in? I don't want to lose this house. I have to make a decision. I want this one. And so they're not going to choose the house where they have to stumble and try and figure out the information. They're going to purchase the home that has all the information. So making your home marketable, of course, means beautiful photography and all of the accurate information and writing a really wonderful public comment description for it. But it's giving all of the information so that a buyer can buy your home with no concerns. Now, if I'm working with the buyer, I explain to my buyers what's going to make you most attractive to a seller is to have all of your ducks in a row. We want to make sure we have that pre-approval letter or the proof of funds. We want to make sure that we have a full and complete offer. And when I'm teaching this, I always say to people, tie it up in a nice little bow. You want to make it perfect and presentable. I can't tell you how many times I've had multiple offers, and even though one was a higher price, sellers want to take the offer that's most complete. They don't want any questions. The fear of the unknown is the worst fear for people, right? So if you have an offer and we have the pre-approval and we have the signed contract, the signed disclosures, the signed addendum, everything is nice and neat and in order, a seller is more likely to take that offer than one that might be a little bit higher price, but we don't have the proof of funds, we don't have the pre-approval, we don't have any of that. And then the seller is just going to say, forget it, I don't want to deal with this person. They don't have their act together. They don't know what they're doing. I want someone serious, and this person's serious. And I can tell you story after story about how that's happened. It's terrible. So as a buyer, no, you want to come to the table with everything. So We need to know to do a proper market analysis, whether we're working with the buyer or the seller, and we're going to make that person as marketable as possible. So if we have the listing, we're giving all of the information on the home. And if we have the buyer, we're making that buyer as strong a buyer as we possibly can. So that's our marketing piece. And finally, we have to be an expert in the contracts, in the addendum, in the transaction itself, especially the time is of the essence clause in the contracts. How many times that time of the essence clause is missed, which means, you know, if the buyer doesn't provide their mortgage commitment by a certain date, the seller can cancel the contract and keep your deposit. So it's not okay to just say, oh no, everybody said it's okay. No, it's not everybody said it's okay. We need everything in writing. We need an addendum extending this date because we know we're not going to get that commitment on time. You know, I had somebody say to me once, I had some folks who purchased a home as a basically like a project second home, and they had to go back to New York State. This was the beginning of COVID, and they wanted to get back home before they shut the state down. And they were closing on the house from New York. And so they said, would you mind just going and doing a quick walkthrough? And I said, sure, I can do that for you. I can only tell you what I see. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm just going to show you what I see. And so there's still furniture in the house. And I called the list agent. I said, there's still furniture in the house. This closes tomorrow. They need to get the furniture out. And the agent said, give me a break. It's an as-is contract. So I said, sure. And if we look at the as-is contract together, online, I think it's, I don't remember the line, I think it's 36, item 6.A states all personal property will be removed from the home prior to closing. And I got hung up on, but that didn't hurt my feelings. That's okay. That's what I'm here for, right? I need to be an expert on the contract, an expert on the addendum to protect my customer. So if that customer was in New York and I didn't know that information and I let that person intimidate me, well, they would have had all of this furniture, which, believe me when I tell you, is probably infested, sitting in that house when they couldn't get to it, which is not what they wanted, right? And so the next day it was all on the curb, which is wonderful. But you have to be an expert on the contracts, an expert on the addendums, an expert at keeping track of that time is of the essence to protect your buyers or your seller's interests at all times. So you are not a salesperson. I don't know anyone who is, you know, convincing enough to say, I'm going to sell you a $500,000 house that you really didn't want. I'm not sure that that could happen. But what I do know is when you present yourself as an expert, that you're going to get somebody, you're going to facilitate this experience from point A to point B, and you're going to guide it so there is no concerns and no worries. You have a very different mindset about yourself, and you go forward with a very different attitude. So I would encourage you to kind of consider that and think on that and change your mindset from salesman to expert. And if you're not sure where to get your expertise, I will tell you that what you need to do, or what I would encourage you to do, I hate that, what you need to do. What I encourage you to do is get to your local board of realtors. Now, I know that, you know, most every brokerage around has classes that you can take, and I think that you should fully take advantage of those. What I also know is oftentimes the instructors that come to the board of realtors also sit as expert witnesses for the state in the event that anyone's brought forward to, you know, a FREC hearing or something else. So I want to learn from the expert witness for the state as to what I should and shouldn't be doing, as to what the contract says and what that means. So while a lot of brokerages offer classes that are well-intentioned, my best advice to you and what I tell all of my students and anyone I come in contact with, get yourself to the board of realtors, to people who do this on a regular basis, who are experts in the content that you need to know about. Okay, I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to talk more about these 3 areas of expertise, feel free to reach out to me anytime.